Imagine this: a violent insurrection at the US Capitol, fueled by lies about a stolen election. Conspiracy theories, once relegated to the fringes, have seeped into the heart of American politics. But how did we get here? How did misinformation grow from harmless rumors to a force capable of shaking the very foundations of democracy? From figures like Roger Stone and Alex Jones to the Capitol siege, the spread of conspiracies is reshaping politics. It's influencing millions and endangering the truth itself. Stay with us as we uncover how these dangerous ideologies took over America and the devastating consequences they are still having today. January 6, 2021 marked a defining moment in American history. As the US Capitol was stormed by a mob of rioters, the nation watched in disbelief. But what was the spark behind this violent uprising? How did a peaceful transition of power descend into chaos? The answer, as the documentary United States of Conspiracy reveals, lies in the rise of conspiracy theories and their deeply rooted influence in American politics. The Capitol siege was not just a random act of violence, it was the culmination of years of conspiracy theories seeping into the mainstream, amplifying distrust in the American government and its democratic institutions. Among the loudest voices fueling these theories were figures like Roger Stone and Alex Jones. Both became household names, promoting increasingly radical and dangerous narratives that positioned them as key players in the narrative surrounding the 2020 election. Roger Stone, a longtime political strategist and confidant of former President Donald Trump, had been known for pushing extreme viewpoints long before the election. His tactics were often divisive, yet his influence within political circles was undeniable. As the election neared, Stone's rhetoric escalated, feeding into a narrative that would eventually claim that the 2020 election was stolen. He wasn't alone in this. Alex Jones, the founder of InfoWars, became a central figure in spreading these conspiracies. His show, often featuring inflammatory and baseless claims, became a key part of the rhetoric that ignited the Capitol riot. Jones, a self-proclaimed freedom fighter, portrayed the election as part of a grand conspiracy by global elites to steal power from the American people. He constantly pushed the idea that the media, tech companies, and politicians were involved in a coordinated effort to prevent Trump from securing a second term. Jones's followers, many of whom had been primed by years of his shows, believed every word he said. And this belief was a catalyst for their actions on that fateful day. But where did this deep distrust of institutions come from? What was it that allowed these conspiratorial narratives to flourish and gain traction with so many Americans? The documentary delves into the psychological and societal factors that fueled the rise of conspiracy theories, specifically focusing on the phenomenon of tribalism. People increasingly saw themselves as part of a group, one that was pitted against an enemy. These conspiracy theories offered them a sense of control in an increasingly chaotic world. In a time of uncertainty, they provided a comforting, albeit false, explanation of the world. Those who embraced these ideas didn't just believe in them, they built entire identities around them. And these beliefs became almost unshakable. One of the most chilling aspects of the documentary is its exploration of how conspiracy theorists exploit tragedies for their own gain. The case of the Sandy Hook shooting is a stark example of this. In 2012, horrific tragedy unfolded when 20 children and 6 adults were murdered in one of the most devastating school shootings in U.S. history. Yet, despite the undeniable evidence and the grief of the victims' families, some conspiracy theorists, including Jones, promoted the idea that the shooting was a hoax. They claimed that the children never existed, that it was staged as part of a false flag operation to push for gun control. The film highlights the damage caused by these falsehoods, particularly the devastating impact on the families of the victims. Imagine being a parent who lost a child and then having to endure the pain of watching your child's death be dismissed as part of a conspiracy. The families faced harassment, threats, and the painful realization that the people who had once been strangers to them now sought to dismantle their grief and pain. But what fueled these horrific claims? Why did some people feel the need to manipulate such a tragedy for their own political and ideological agenda? As the documentary progresses, it examines how these extreme ideas found a foothold within mainstream political discourse. The line between the fringe and the mainstream began to blur, especially in the years leading up to and during Trump's presidency. His rhetoric, often filled with exaggerations and baseless accusations, gave legitimacy to these conspiratorial views. By amplifying the voices of people like Stone and Jones, Trump helped bring these once fringe ideas into the political spotlight. The film also takes a close look at the Capitol siege itself, analyzing how the seeds of conspiracy had been sown long before the rioters stormed the building. The belief that the 2020 election had been stolen was not a sudden idea, had been cultivated for months. Reinforced by constant, repeated claims of fraud and deceit, the individuals who stormed the Capitol were not acting out of ignorance. Many believed they were defending democracy itself, convinced by the stories they had been told for months that their country was under attack. But how did these individuals, many of whom were average Americans, not the violent extremists often associated with such events, become radicalized? How did they come to believe that an election result, verified by courts and counted by countless officials, was the result of a massive coordinated conspiracy? The documentary examines the role of social media in spreading misinformation, and how algorithms amplified divisive content, pushing users down rabbit holes of ever more extreme ideas. These platforms, once intended to connect people, instead became breeding grounds for conspiracy theories, allowing false narratives to spread rapidly and gain influence. Forensic anomalies abound in the case of the Capitol siege. While the majority of the rioters entered the Capitol without weapons, the physical damage done to the building, coupled with the psychological damage inflicted on the nation, cannot be ignored. The police officers who were injured during the attack, some suffering permanent physical damage, remain a reminder of the human cost of this conspiracy-driven violence. But there is something even more disturbing. The way the authorities initially downplayed the event, and dismissed the severity of the threat posed by the rioters. Were there intentional lapses in security? Did certain figures within law enforcement turn a blind eye, allowing the violence to escalate? One theory posited in the documentary is that some key figures within the government, perhaps motivated by partisan politics or even personal ambition, played a role in fostering the environment that led to the siege. Were they complicit in allowing the mob to gather, believing it would discredit their political opponents? The documentary explores the possibility that the conspiracy had been allowed to grow unchecked, nurtured by those who saw it as a way to further their own power. As the documentary moves toward its conclusion, it poses critical questions about institutional secrecy. Why did certain individuals, including elected officials, refuse to publicly acknowledge the severity of the conspiracy-driven violence? Why were some files, reports, and videos related to the siege classified or kept from public view? And perhaps most importantly, why has the rise of conspiracy theories, which now permeate American politics, been allowed to continue unchecked? This is not just a story of fringe ideologies gone mainstream. It is a story about the dangerous consequences of unchecked power, the manipulation of truth, and the ways in which individuals and institutions can exploit fear and distrust for personal gain. As the documentary leaves viewers with these unsettling questions, it challenges us to think critically about the forces that shape our beliefs and our understanding of reality. Why have these conspiracy theories become so pervasive? And who benefits from keeping the truth obscured? Stay tuned to uncover more in this thought-provoking documentary, as we explore the events that have shaped the political landscape and the hidden forces driving America's current crisis. The documentary continues to explore the psychological effects of widespread conspiracy beliefs, especially the ripple effects they have on individuals and communities. It delves into the stories of people who were once deeply embedded in conspiracy theories, but later realized the devastating consequences of their actions. These individuals often speak of the psychological manipulation that kept them locked in a cycle of distrust, pushing them to isolate themselves from their communities and loved ones. One key figure, featured in the documentary, shares their personal journey from believing in election fraud to coming to terms with the reality that they had been misled. Their story is a testament to the powerful grip these conspiracy theories have on the human mind. "I felt like I was part of something bigger," they explain, "but as the truth unfolded, I saw the damage I had caused, not only to my own life, but to the lives of those around me." It's a powerful reminder that conspiracy theories are not just dangerous for the individuals, who believe in them, they are dangerous for society as a whole. They fracture communities, tear apart families, and create divisions that are difficult to heal. As these ideologies gain more traction, they can destabilize entire societies, as we've seen with the Capitol siege. The documentary also examines the role of the media in fueling these conspiracies. In particular, the film looks at how certain media outlets, personalities, and platforms have contributed to the spread of extremist views. Fox News, Newsmax, and OAN, along with figures like Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, have been criticized for amplifying false claims and giving them a veneer of legitimacy. While they may not explicitly endorse violent rhetoric, their failure to challenge false narratives has provided fertile ground for conspiracy theories to thrive. A key moment in the documentary highlights the rhetoric used by these platforms and personalities. It's not always overtly malicious, but instead subtly woven into the fabric of daily broadcasts, making viewers more receptive to these radical ideas. For instance, claims about deep state conspiracies and rigged elections are presented as plausible possibilities, even though they lack any factual basis. The documentary emphasizes how these claims, when repeated enough times, become normalized in the minds of the audience. The film also examines the case of Alex Jones and his platform InfoWars, which became infamous for promoting false narratives about events like the Sandy Hook tragedy. Jones's rhetoric about false flag operations and government control contributed to the idea that the media and the authorities were actively covering up the truth. His relentless promotion of these ideas not only led to the harassment of victims' families, but also contributed to a larger culture of skepticism and distrust. Jones's repeated claims about a stolen election and the supposed deep state led millions to believe in a narrative that was entirely fabricated. The documentary doesn't just focus on the conspiracists themselves, but also on the dangerous ripple effects of their influence. The Capitol siege, an event spurred by conspiracy-driven beliefs, is a tragic reminder of the lengths to which some will go when they believe their worldview is under attack. The rioters, many of whom were ordinary Americans from various walks of life, were convinced that they were defending their country against an illegitimate government. Their belief in this conspiracy theory led them to take extreme violent actions that would be hard to justify under any other circumstances. But what was the real cause behind this violent insurrection? Was it purely the influence of conspiracy theories, or did other factors play a role? As the documentary suggests, it is a complex mix of psychological manipulation, media influence, and political polarization. The film argues that while conspiracy theories are not new, the way they are consumed and spread today, through social media and distorted 24/7 news cycles, has made them more dangerous than ever before. Social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are identified as key players in the spread of these theories. The algorithms on these platforms, designed to keep users engaged, often amplify extreme content that generates the most reactions. Conspiracy theories, by their nature, elicit strong emotions, fear, anger, and outrage, which make them perfect fuel for these algorithms. The documentary examines how individuals already predisposed to suspicion and distrust are increasingly exposed to content that reinforces their beliefs, pushing them further into a world of radical ideologies. The film also looks at the role of organized groups, such as QAnon, in amplifying conspiracy theories. QAnon, a far-right conspiracy movement, gained significant traction during Trump's presidency, feeding into the narrative that there was a global elite controlling world events and working against the common people. This ideology, which was largely based on baseless claims, turned into a full-fledged movement, with members spreading their beliefs online and organizing protests and rallies. The film highlights how QAnon's messages infiltrated mainstream political discourse, leading to the radicalization of individuals who were once apolitical or even moderate in their views. A particularly unsettling moment in the documentary occurs when it examines the aftermath of the Capitol siege and the role of elected officials in perpetuating the false claims about the election. Some politicians, seeing the growing support for these theories, began to openly endorse them. Their willingness to stoke division for political gain further entrenched the belief that the 2020 election was stolen, even when presented with overwhelming evidence to the contrary. The documentary doesn't shy away from the uncomfortable truth. The political establishment, both parties, has become complicit in the spread of conspiracy theories. By catering to the fears and suspicions of certain voter bases, politicians have played a role in allowing these radical ideas to fester and spread. The film raises questions about the long-term impact of this strategy. What happens when conspiracy theories infiltrate the political mainstream? What happens when political leaders, in their desperation to hold power, embrace falsehoods in order to secure votes? As the film wraps up, it poses critical questions that are more relevant than ever. What are the long-term consequences of a society that chooses to embrace conspiracy theories over truth? How do we begin to rebuild trust in institutions, when so much of the public has been led to believe that the system is corrupt and rigged? And perhaps most importantly, who is responsible for the spread of these lies? Why are these false narratives so appealing, and what can be done to challenge them? The documentary leaves viewers with these unsettling questions, encouraging them to reflect on the role they play in the information ecosystem and the impact their beliefs have on society as a whole. As we look to the future, the rise of conspiracy theories represents one of the most significant challenges facing modern America. The question is no longer just about confronting these lies. It's about understanding why they persist and how they have been weaponized to such devastating effect. The road to healing begins with facing uncomfortable truths, but it's a road that, as the documentary suggests, we are still far from walking down. Stay tuned for more investigative documentaries that uncover the hidden forces shaping our world. As the documentary progresses, it turns its focus to the future and what might be done to confront the overwhelming influence of conspiracy theories in American society. What is the next step in this battle for truth, and how can we rebuild trust in institutions that have been severely undermined? One critical theme explored in the film is the growing influence of social media and how it has fundamentally changed the way information is consumed. The documentary explains that social media platforms have evolved into major sources of information for millions of Americans, yet these platforms also serve as fertile ground for misinformation to spread unchecked. With algorithms designed to prioritize engagement over truth, these platforms amplify extreme and often harmful content. Whether it's false claims about elections, the pandemic, or international politics, the spread of misinformation is faster, wider, and harder to control than ever before. Experts in the documentary argue that to tackle this issue, social media companies must take a more active role in curbing the spread of conspiracy theories. Yet the question remains, how can these platforms balance freedom of speech with the responsibility to prevent the spread of harmful lies? The documentary examines the complexities of moderating content in an age where censorship is met with resistance, and where many see such actions as a form of political control. However, it's not just the tech companies that must shoulder the blame. The media, particularly the sensationalist cable news networks, is also complicit in stoking the fires of division. The documentary explores how certain media outlets, by catering to a particular audience, have deliberately fostered distrust in government institutions, elections, and the press. Instead of reporting facts, these outlets have often prioritized sensationalism and fear, contributing to a cycle of outrage that makes it easier for conspiracy theories to take root. Figures like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and others have provided a platform for extremist views, further normalizing them within the public discourse. The film also looks at the impact of education and critical thinking in the digital age. With younger generations increasingly getting their news from the internet, many are ill-prepared to identify misinformation when they encounter it. The documentary highlights the importance of teaching digital literacy in schools, as well as encouraging skepticism and independent research. By equipping people with the tools to critically evaluate the information they receive, the hope is that future generations will be better equipped to resist the lure of conspiracy theories. The film also goes deeper into the psychology of belief. Why are people so susceptible to conspiratorial thinking? What is it about human nature that makes these theories so appealing? Experts in the documentary argue that there are several psychological factors at play. For some, conspiracy theories provide a sense of control in an uncertain world. For others, they offer a simple explanation for complex and chaotic events. The documentary explains that people who feel disenfranchised or powerless are particularly vulnerable to conspiracy theories because they promise a way to make sense of their frustrations. In an attempt to understand the psychological appeal of conspiracies, the documentary includes interviews with individuals who were once deeply involved in conspiracy movements, but later left them behind. These former believers recount the emotional and intellectual journey that led them to embrace and eventually disavow their belief in these extreme narratives. The interviews reveal the personal costs of falling down a conspiracy rabbit hole, the alienation from friends and family, the destruction of trust, and the emotional toll it takes to admit that they were wrong. One former believer, now an advocate for truth and reconciliation, shares their experience of being part of the QAnon movement, describing how they were initially drawn in by the promise of uncovering a hidden truth. Over time, however, the constant barrage of increasingly absurd and unsupported claims began to wear thin. It was like a drug, they said. The more I got into it, the more I needed to believe in it. But when I started questioning it, I realized how deep I had fallen. I had lost touch with reality. Their story is a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked belief and the fragility of the human mind when it is continually fed with misinformation. The documentary also examines the role of government in this landscape. While many individuals have embraced conspiracy theories, some politicians have weaponized them for their own political gain. The film explores how political leaders, particularly during and after the Trump era, capitalized on the growing distrust in democratic institutions, using conspiracy-driven rhetoric to galvanize their base. The stolen election narrative, despite being thoroughly debunked, was relentlessly pushed by many high-profile figures, contributing to the Capitol siege and the broader erosion of trust in the American electoral system. By continuously promoting these falsehoods, certain political figures have played a direct role in making conspiracy theories more mainstream. This has had dangerous consequences, not only in terms of public health, where conspiracy theories about COVID-19 and vaccines have resulted in widespread misinformation, but also in terms of the country's political future. As these conspiratorial beliefs take root, they deepen the divide between different groups in society. It's making it harder to bridge the gaps of understanding. However, the documentary does not end in despair. While the challenges are significant, it also highlights the efforts of individuals and organizations working to counteract the influence of conspiracy theories. Fact-checking organizations, journalists, and grassroots movements are at the forefront of combating misinformation, working tirelessly to expose lies and educate the public on how to discern truth from fiction. The documentary features several examples of how communities are coming together to rebuild trust, one fact at a time.
The film
Concludes with a sobering reflection on the future of American democracy. Will the country be able to overcome the divisive forces of misinformation, or will conspiracy theories continue to erode the foundations of trust and unity? The documentary ends with a call to action, urging viewers to become more active in seeking the truth, questioning false narratives, and supporting efforts to restore integrity to American institutions. Will we ever be able to fully heal from the damage caused by these radical beliefs, or has the truth become too distorted to repair? The documentary leaves viewers with these lingering questions. It's emphasizing the need for collective action in the fight against misinformation. Stay tuned for more in-depth documentaries that challenge the narratives shaping our world. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date on our next investigative piece. You want to miss what's coming next, a story that uncovers a hidden influence controlling global events. As the documentary concludes, it shifts to a broader perspective, examining how the power of conspiracy theories can be harnessed to manipulate large segments of the population. The rise of conspiracy-driven movements in the United States is not an isolated phenomenon, but part of a global trend. The film looks beyond American borders, showing how the spread of false information and radical ideologies has become a global challenge, affecting democracies and institutions worldwide. From Brexit to the rise of populist movements in Europe, conspiracy theories have become a significant force in shaping political landscapes. The documentary highlights a disturbing pattern. Conspiracy theories often act as a gateway to more extreme political beliefs, leading individuals down a path of radicalization. This radicalization doesn't just manifest in online forums or social media, it spills into real-world action. Whether it's the storming of the Capitol or the growing number of attacks on government officials, healthcare workers, and journalists. The film showcases chilling examples of individuals who, after immersing themselves in conspiracy theories, have taken violent actions in the name of truth or patriotism. A particularly shocking segment in the documentary focuses on the role of online platforms in amplifying these movements. Social media algorithms, designed to keep users engaged by showing them more of what they like, often push people into echo chambers where extreme ideas are reinforced. Once someone is exposed to a conspiracy theory, the algorithm continually feeds them similar content, further embedding these false beliefs in their minds. The film explores how, in many cases, people are not actively seeking these ideas. They are being subtly nudged toward them by algorithms that prioritize engagement over accuracy. One of the most striking revelations in the documentary is the role of big tech companies in enabling the spread of conspiracies. The film examines the responsibility of platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube in curbing harmful content. While these companies have taken steps to combat the spread of misinformation, such as fact-checking posts and removing harmful content, the documentary argues that their efforts have often been too little too late. The sheer scale of misinformation, coupled with the financial incentives that encourage engagement, has created a situation where the spread of conspiracies has become a profitable enterprise. The film takes a critical look at the effectiveness of these measures, questioning whether social media platforms are genuinely committed to addressing the issue, or whether they are simply reacting to public pressure. Many of these platforms have been slow to implement policies that address the root causes of conspiracy-driven radicalization, such as the amplification of extremist content. The documentary calls for more stringent regulations and a re-evaluation of how social media platforms can be held accountable for the content they allow to proliferate. As the documentary reaches its final segments, it delves into the steps that individuals and institutions must take to prevent the further spread of conspiracy theories. The film emphasizes the importance of media literacy, especially for young people who are the most vulnerable to online manipulation. The documentary advocates for a nationwide effort to teach critical thinking skills, helping people to better identify false narratives and challenge the information they encounter. This includes encouraging people to engage with a wider variety of viewpoints and to seek out credible sources of information. The film also stresses the importance of restoring trust in democratic institutions. It highlights efforts by grassroots organizations, journalists, and activists to combat misinformation. With some making significant strides in pushing back against the influence of conspiracy theories, these efforts, while valuable, face an uphill battle. As the conspiratorial mindset has become deeply entrenched in parts of American society, the documentary urges viewers to not only acknowledge the problem but to actively engage in efforts to reclaim the truth and promote dialogue over division. The documentary ends with a sobering reflection on the challenges ahead. It acknowledges that conspiracy theories are not easily defeated. They are a powerful tool for those seeking to undermine societal trust and political stability. But it also offers a glimmer of hope, suggesting that by confronting these theories head-on through education, media reform, and collective action, we can begin to rebuild the foundation of trust that is so crucial to the health of democracy. How will we fight the growing tide of misinformation and conspiracy theories that threaten to destabilize our society? The film poses this crucial question as it leaves viewers with the responsibility of taking action, not just as individuals, but as a society committed to truth, integrity, and collective well-being. The call to action is clear. The fight against conspiracy-driven narratives is far from over. But with renewed efforts to educate, to challenge falsehoods, and to demand accountability from those who spread them, there is hope that we can stem the tide of disinformation before it's too late. If you found this documentary eye-opening and thought-provoking, make sure to like, comment, and share this video with others who need to understand the hidden forces shaping our world today. Dan T, forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth investigations into the forces that are driving global change. And hit the notification bell to stay updated on our next powerful story. But before you leave, here's something that will keep you hooked. In our next video, We'll be uncovering a secret network of influencers manipulating the global narrative in ways you won't believe. Stay tuned and get ready for another explosive documentary that will change everything you thought you knew. As the documentary concludes, it turns to the broader implications of the conspiracy-driven culture that has taken root in the United States and around the world. It delves into how this climate of mistrust and misinformation could affect the future of global politics. What happens when a significant portion of the population refuses to believe in the verifiable truths that govern society? What happens when entire segments of the population, fueled by disinformation, lose faith in their governments, in science, and in the very institutions that are meant to serve them? The documentary explores how the rise of conspiracy theories is not just an issue for the United States. Across the world, similar narratives are taking hold in countries like Brazil, Kenya, and Hungary, where populist leaders have used the tactics of conspiracy theorists to consolidate power. These movements, though varied in their local manifestations, share a common theme. They prey on people's fears and insecurities, offering a simple yet fundamentally false explanation for complex global issues. This, in turn, has led to a dangerous cycle where misinformation becomes the basis of political discourse. One of the key takeaways from the film is the role of elites in exacerbating this crisis. Many conspiracy theorists point to shadowy groups of global elites controlling world events. But the documentary suggests that in some cases, these elites are themselves complicit in creating the conditions for conspiracy-driven narratives to thrive. Whether it's through disinformation, campaigns controlling the media narrative, or fostering division to maintain political power. There is a growing recognition that the very systems of governance and corporate power that some conspiracy theorists attack are often the same ones enabling the spread of false narratives. The documentary shifts its focus to the role of education in combating these dangerous ideologies. For many people who fall into the trap of conspiracy thinking, it is not just a lack of information that drives them to these beliefs, but the failure to understand how to critically evaluate the information they encounter. Experts argue that the solution lies in teaching media literacy, empowering people to spot false narratives, understand the role of algorithms in shaping public discourse, and recognize when they are being manipulated by bad actors. But this, as the film points out, is a long-term solution that requires coordinated efforts from schools, universities, tech companies, and governments. The film also explores efforts from within the conspiracy communities themselves to break free from the grip of misinformation. People who were once deeply entrenched in these ideologies have begun speaking out, sharing their personal journeys of realization and redemption. Their stories are powerful testaments to the human ability to change. Even when deeply rooted beliefs have defined much of one's identity, but these individuals are often vilified by their former communities, making it difficult for them to reintegrate into a society that still views them with suspicion. One particularly poignant example in the documentary follows a former QAnon believer who, after years of promoting and spreading disinformation, came to understand how they had been misled. It wasn't just about believing in something, they explain. It was about feeling like I was part of something. It gave me purpose. But when I started questioning it, I saw how it was destroying everything around me. It was destroying me too. Their story highlights the deep psychological toll that conspiracy-driven thinking can have on individuals, particularly when it becomes an integral part of their social identity. The film then returns to the broader societal consequences. As misinformation continues to dominate political discourse, the documentary raises concerns about the future of democratic processes. If large swaths of the population continue to believe in unfounded narratives, how can elections be trusted? How can public policy be effective if decisions are based on lies rather than facts? The very integrity of democracy, it suggests, is under threat. The rise of conspiracy theories, according to experts interviewed in the documentary, is not only an issue of misinformation, but of the erosion of critical thinking itself. People have become conditioned to seek out information that aligns with their existing beliefs, rather than challenge them. This is particularly concerning in an age where the speed of information and the sheer volume of content can overwhelm the average person. When fact and fiction become indistinguishable, truth becomes subjective. The film makes it clear that the problem is not just about exposing lies, about rebuilding a culture of truth. This is the ultimate challenge. How do we restore trust in institutions that have been undermined by years of deliberate misinformation? How do we engage a public that feels alienated from the very systems that are supposed to represent their interests? The documentary ends with a final haunting question. Can society recover from the damage caused by years of conspiracy-fueled thinking? Or is it too late to restore faith in the truth? The documentary leaves viewers with a sobering realization about the future of public discourse and the fragility of truth in the modern world. It's not just about the rise of one conspiracy theory or another, it's about the erosion of the very fabric of our shared reality. The documentary's conclusion is both a warning and a call to action, urging viewers to take a more active role in combating misinformation, holding those responsible, accountable, and ultimately striving to rebuild a society that values truth above all else. Asterisk, asterisk. If you found this documentary both disturbing and enlightening, make sure to like, comment, and share this video with others who need to understand the dangerous power of misinformation. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth investigations into the forces shaping our world. Before you go, we have another explosive documentary coming up. You won't believe the hidden forces behind one of the most shocking political movements in history. Stay tuned and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. Our next video will take you into the shadowy world of covert political strategies that are influencing global events. Trust us, you won't want to miss it. As we close out this deep dive into how conspiracies have overtaken American society, it's clear that the impact of misinformation and radical beliefs goes far beyond the individuals who embrace them. The fabric of democracy, trust in institutions, and even our collective understanding of reality are all under attack by these false narratives. The question remains, how do we reclaim our faith in truth when so many people have been swept up in lies that have consumed their lives? The challenge is monumental, but it's not insurmountable. Youth, through media literacy, critical thinking, and collective action, it's possible to rebuild a society that values facts and rejects the dangerous allure of conspiracy. Yet, with social media algorithms, partisan media, and deepening polarization continuing to shape public perception, the road to recovery is long and uncertain. However, the responsibility lies with each of us not just to seek the truth, but to actively share it and confront misinformation wherever we find it. As we move forward, the work is just beginning. Each individual has a role to play in resisting the spread of harmful conspiracies, whether through education, dialogue, or simply being skeptical of narratives that aren't backed by evidence. Every action counts in this fight for the future. If you found this documentary illuminating and unsettling, be sure to like, comment, and share this video with anyone who needs to understand the powerful forces behind conspiracy theories. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on our latest investigations into the world of misinformation, politics, and hidden truths. But before you leave, here's something you won't to miss. Our next video explores a hidden network of influential figures, who are shaping world events behind closed doors. You won't believe the shocking connections we've uncovered. Stay tuned to see how these covert strategies are affecting global politics, and hit that notification bell to be the first to watch. Trust us, this one will blow your mind.